I survived IEDs, firefights, and watching friends bleed out in the dust. But none of it hit like walking into my own bedroom and finding my wife bent over our bed with my business partner behind her. The difference is, in Afghanistan I expected the ambush, this one I'd been paying for on a 30-year fixed mortgage. My name's Ryan Walker, 37 years old, 3 tours in Afghanistan, honorable discharge, co-founder of a security company, and until this day, I thought I understood what taking fire felt like. Turns out I didn't. Not really. I'd been gone 8 months on a contractor rotation overseas. Hot wind, cheap coffee, sand in everything, and that constant edge in your nerves that never fully shuts off. Half my pay was flowing straight back here, to our quiet little Sacramento street, the manicured lawn I never mowed, the fresh paint I never rolled on, the bed I hadn't slept in since spring. I got an early leave. Surprise rotation change. Most guys hit Vegas on the way home. Me? I thought I'd be the hero husband. Show up 2 days early, walk through the door with my duffel on my shoulder, sweep my wife up, kiss her, breathe normal air for once. The neighborhood looked like a brochure the moment I turned onto our street. Sprinklers ticking, kids' bikes on driveways. My house is sitting there clean and calm like it had been waiting for me. I remember thinking, this is what I fought for. I parked at the curb instead of the driveway. Habit from places where you don't make yourself easy to hit. Killed the engine. Sat there a second, letting my ears ring in the quiet because I wasn't hearing generators, radios, or distant gunfire. Just birds. Key in my hand, I walked up to the front door. No balloons. No welcome home sign. I wasn't offended. She didn't know I was coming. That was the whole point. The lock turned. I stepped into the entryway, the cool air wrapping around me. The house smelled like vanilla candles and some kind of expensive soap. My boots thudded on hardwood I'd paid for. "Jess," I called out, not loud, just testing the room. No answer. Coat rack, her shoes by the wall, her purse on the console table. TV off. The kitchen is clean. Too clean. The quiet wasn't normal quiet. It was the kind that makes your neck hair stand up for no logical reason. Then I heard it. A voice. Male. Muffled, but clear enough if you've spent years memorizing people's tones. Brandon Cole. My business partner. My brother in arms on the civilian side. The guy I'd built Walker Cole Security Solutions with from 2 laptops and a folding table. And then Jessica's laugh. Soft, breathy, right above him. The switch flipped in my head. The emotional channel went dark. The mission channel came online. Same thing that used to happen when the radio crackled and someone yelled, "Contact." Heart rate up but steady. Breathing slowly. No shaking. Just a cold, clean line from thought to action. I set my duffel down quietly by the door. Phone in my pocket, safety net, but I didn't pull it out yet. No yelling. No charging. I moved through my own house like I was clearing a building. Past the kitchen. Past the family photos on the wall, wedding pictures, anniversary dinners, the fake perfect life staged in 12 by 18 frames. Up the stairs, one at a time, weight over the outside edge of my boots to keep the steps from creaking. Their voices grew clearer. I heard Brandon say something low and stupid, trying to be sexy. Heard the mattress answer with that dull rhythmic squeak that leaves no room for interpretation. My jaw locked, but my hands stayed loose. I'd seen worse. I told myself that. I'd seen dead kids, burned trucks, friends zipped into bags. This was just another kind of body count. At the top of the stairs, the bedroom door was half closed. Same white paint I'd paid for, same cheap brass knob. I walked up, pushed it open with 2 fingers and stepped inside. There they were. Jessica bent over our bed, hair a mess, face turned away. Brandon behind her, pale and sweaty, wedding ring flashing on his hand. That detail burned itself into my brain. I gave it exactly 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I wanted that image locked in tight. No blurred edges. No chance of her ever convincing me I'd imagined or exaggerated. Just a clean mental snapshot I could pull up any time I thought about forgiving, second chances, or giving anyone the benefit of the doubt ever again. Then I spoke. "Afternoon," I said. My voice sounded like it wasn't mine. Flat, almost bored. Hope I'm not interrupting a business meeting. They froze like someone hit pause. Jessica twisted around, eyes huge, color draining from her face. Brandon stumbled back, trying to cover himself, tripping on the sheets. Ryan, oh my God, you're home. This isn't, she stammered. Early leave, I replied. 8 months in a war zone. Figured I'd surprise my wife. Joke's on me, I guess. Brandon tried to find his voice. Man, listen, it's not what it looks like. I cut my eyes to him. Years of friendship, countless late nights building the company, all compressed into 1 second of pure, surgical clarity. If the sentence you're about to say starts with, "It's not what it looks like," I said, "you're already lying, so don't waste my time." He shut his mouth. Smartest thing he'd done all day. Jessica grabbed the sheet around herself, stepping off the bed. Ryan, please, just let me explain. You had 8 months, I said. You could have explained any time between the first text and right now. You chose this, so here's how this is going to work. I pointed at her closet. Calm, emotionless, like I was assigning sectors of fire. You've got 1 hour to pack a bag. Clothes, personal stuff, whatever fits. You're leaving this house today. Her voice went high, panicked. You can't just throw me out. This is my house too. I shook my head once. Deeds in my name only. Your idea, remember? Tax purposes. I let that land. You made it real easy, Jess. She stared at me like she'd never met me before. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe she'd only ever known the version of me that came home and tried to be soft so she didn't have to feel how hard my life had been. I turned to Brandon. He'd managed to pull his pants halfway on, hands shaking. You, I said, you've got 60 seconds to get out of my house. If you step wrong, raise your voice or try to talk to me again, I call the cops and report a trespasser who just had sex with my wife in my bed. I've got no problem letting them write that up. Ryan, come on, we're partners. Correction, I said. We were partners. He saw something in my face then. Not rage. Rage would have given him hope, made him think I was out of control, that this could get messy and complicated. What he saw was worse, calm, planned violence that never needed to touch him physically to wreck his life. He grabbed his shirt and shoes and bolted. I listened to his footsteps pound down the stairs, front door slam, engine start, tires peel away. Jessica started crying. Big, loud, messy. Please, can we just talk about this? You've got 55 minutes, I said, checking my watch. Use them however you want. But when the time's up, you're gone. I took one last look at the room. The tangled sheets, the indent in the mattress, the faint smell of sweat and perfume. Then I stepped back into the hallway. As I closed the door behind me, I wasn't thinking about death or murder or any of the things people fantasize about when they imagine catching someone like this. I was thinking about logistics, evidence, angles, combat mode. This was the moment where the hurt stopped mattering and the operation started. And that's where calculated justice, not blind rage, really began. I walked downstairs like I was leaving a debrief, not my own bedroom. My hands weren't shaking. My breathing was steady. The part of me that wanted to scream was there. Sure, but it was strapped to a chair in the corner of my mind where it couldn't touch anything important. First call, lawyer. One of my buddies from a previous contract had told me, if it ever goes bad at home, call Daniel Brooks. He doesn't clean, he wins. I pulled out my phone at the kitchen island, scrolled to Brooks' attorney, and hit the dial. He picked up on the second ring. Brooks. Ryan Walker, I said. Mutual contact. Staff Sergeant Evans. I've got a situation. Talk, he said. No small talk, no fake warmth. Good sign. Came home early from an overseas rotation, I said. Tone clipped, just facts. Found my wife having an affair with my business partner. In my house. In my bed. Today, within the last 20 minutes. Kids? He asked. None. Whose name is on the deed? Mine only. Good, he said. Here's what you're going to do, Ryan. You're not going to touch anyone. You're not going to yell. You're not going to let her take anything but clothes and personal items. No furniture, no documents, nothing big. You're gonna document everything. Then you're gonna sit tight until I get there. How fast can you be here? 45, he said. Start treating that room like a crime scene. Time, place, details. And don't speak to the other man again. He doesn't exist to you from this second on. Copy, I said, and hung up. I moved back upstairs, not to argue, just to work. While Jessica stomped around the closet crying and muttering about how I was overreacting, I stayed out of her way and started collecting evidence. Photos of the bed, rumpled sheets, her underwear on the floor, his belt draped over the chair. I made sure the timestamp showed clearly on my phone screen in a couple of the shots. Not art, documentation. Back downstairs, I opened my laptop at the dining table and made the second call. Nick Harris, ex-Army, my second-in-command at Walker Coal Security Solutions. The guy who actually bled for the company with me. He answered with a laugh in his voice. Boss, are you back stateside yet or still sending angry emails from the sandbox? I'm back, I said. Listen carefully, Nick. This is not a joke. The humor dropped out of his voice immediately. I'm listening. Brandon just burned his bridge, I said. I walked in on him sleeping with Jessica. That partnership was done 10 minutes ago. Silence. Then a low, you sure? Seen plenty of things in my life, I said. Never been that sure of anything. Here's what I need, go to the office now. Change every password, email, banking, client portals, internal files. Lock down all financials. Brandon's access gets cut off across the board. Under what authority? He asked, not pushing back, just thinking like a professional. Operating agreement and security protocols, I said. Emergency access restriction due to suspected breach of fiduciary duty. I'll send you confirmation by email at 10. Copy. I'm on my way, he said. You good? I'm busy, I said. Good can wait. I hung up and started drafting the email authorizing temporary lockdown, already picturing Brandon trying to log in and finding digital doors slammed in his face. You don't leave a traitor inside your wire. You isolate, then remove. Upstairs, a suitcase thudded down each step. Jessica appeared at the bottom of the staircase, mascara streaked, 2 big bags in her hands. So that's it? She demanded. You're just kicking me out? This is my home too, Ryan. I looked up at her, calm. No, it used to be our home. You turned it into a hotel room. You can't do this, she said, voice rising. Legally, you can't just. The deed's in my name, Jess, I said. Your idea. Remember? Easier for taxes, easier for refinancing. You insisted. I signed. Those are the facts. She opened her mouth, then shut it. She knew I was right. You'll hear from my lawyer, she snapped. You'll hear from mine first, I said. You've got what you need? She looked around like she expected the house to speak up for her. Nothing did. Yeah, she muttered. Enjoy your empty life. She walked out the front door. I didn't follow. I watched through the window as she threw the bags into her car and drove off like a teenager. 2 minutes later, a black sedan pulled up. Daniel Brooks stepped out. Mid-40s, sharp suit, eyes that missed nothing. He walked in without looking around like he'd been there before. We sat at my dining table. No coffee, no small talk. I laid out the field report. Dates, times, the scene, Brandon, the company, the house. He took notes, asked pointed questions, and never once said, I'm sorry you're going through this. I respected him for that. Okay, he said finally, tapping his pen once. Here's the play, immediate divorce filing, evidence preservation, and we start building the case to surgically remove Brandon from your business with maximum leverage. I nodded. Tell me what you need. Everything, he said, and from what I can tell, you're the kind of man who already knows how to gather it. He wasn't wrong. That night, I stopped being just a wounded husband. I became an investigator with a personal stake. And that's when the operation really locked in. After Daniel left, the house finally went silent. No footsteps, no yelling, no doors slamming. Just the hum of the fridge and my own pulse. Combat taught me something simple. When you don't know what to feel, you execute the checklist. Assess. Document. I went into my home office and fired up the desktop. A few minutes later, a secure link from Nick hit my inbox. Company financials, expense reports, travel logs, all backed up and locked away from Brandon's login. Everything's sealed, his message read. You say the word, we pretend he never existed. I started with the last 8 months, the same window I'd been gone through. Filter, business development, vendor, hotels, travel, restaurants. The numbers stacked up fast. 42,600 and change. Vegas, San Diego, San Francisco, Napa, all under vague descriptions. Client meetings, prospect dinners, relationship building. I pulled up Jessica's Instagram on my phone. Public, curated, fake perfect. Vegas. Her in a designer dress, champagne in hand, tagged at a penthouse bar, captioned, living my best life. Same weekend as a client outreach charge at the same hotel. San Diego, poolside photo, Brandon's arm just barely out of frame, tagged location matching another corporate expense. San Francisco, high-end restaurant, 2 wine glasses, shot angled so no one else is visible. The receipt in our files showed a 4-figure bill that Walker Cole Security Solutions gladly covered. Every match tightened something in my chest, but it also made things cleaner. This wasn't just cheating. This was theft. From me, from the company, from our people. I screenshotted everything, posts, dates, tags, exported the expense reports, pulled credit card statements, built a single folder, labeled it Cole Fiduciary Breach, then synced a copy to a secure drive. At 2:37, I emailed Daniel the whole package with a simple subject line. Find your leverage. I didn't sleep. I'd done too many nights like this overseas. Eyes burning, brain humming, body exhausted but refused its shutdown. At 8 o'clock, Daniel was back at my dining table, glasses low on his nose, scrolling through the files. His mouth flattened into something close to satisfaction. This is a textbook, he said. Personal affair, funded with company resources, hidden under false descriptions. Breach of fiduciary duty, embezzlement, and with your client base. Reputation poison. So what does that buy us? I asked. It buys us the right to walk him to the edge of a cliff and tell him he can either jump or be pushed, Daniel said. We propose a buyout on your terms. He sells his shares back to you for a modest sum, signs a non-compete, and disappears from this industry. Or we go public, file suit, and he spends the next 5 years explaining hotel bills and Instagram captions to judges and regulators. I nodded slowly. I want him out. Clean. No chance he pops back up and bites me later. That's exactly what we're building, Daniel said. Paper bullets. All of them pointed in one direction. My phone buzzed. Mom. I almost ignored it, then picked it up. Ryan, are you home? She asked, voice soft but worried. Yeah, Mom. I'm home. What's going on? Jessica's gone, I said. No tremor. Just the truth. There was a pause. Then my father's voice came on. He'd clearly taken the phone. Former Marine, old school hard. You keep your head, son, he said. You handle your business like a man. You don't beg anybody who chose to walk away. I'm not begging, I said. I'm handling it. That's my boy, he replied. Make sure when the dust settles, your name's still good. That's what you live with. We hung up. I looked back at Daniel. Set it up, I said. Whatever meeting we need to end him in that company. Make it happen. Daniel smiled without any warmth. Already in motion. That was the moment I stopped feeling like a victim and started feeling like what I really was. A man who'd been wronged and was now very calmly arranging consequences. Next step. Walk Brandon into a conference room and take his life's work away from him with a pen. 3 days later, I walked into the glass-walled conference room like it was a target range. Daniel sat to my right, files in a neat stack. Across from us, 2 empty chairs. Brandon showed up first. No tie, jaw tight, eyes everywhere but mine. Behind him, A kid in a suit and fresh bar card written all over his face. Adam Lewis. Ryan, Brandon said, forcing a smile. We can work this out like partners. I didn't answer. Partners are loyal. Daniel opened. We're here to unwind the Walker-Cole partnership. My client is prepared to buy out Mr. Cole's interest today. Adam straightened. We'll need to discuss fair valuation, especially given my client's contributions. I cut in. Your client brought two things, 200 grand in startup cash and a LinkedIn account. I brought the client's contracts, systems, and my name. No one hired us for him. Brandon swallowed. That's not accurate. Daniel slid a thin folder across the table. And this, he said, is what your client also brought. Adam opened it. Hotel receipts, expense reports, screenshots of Jessica's posts. The color drained out of his face as he flipped pages faster. This is personal, Adam tried. It's corporate, Daniel said calmly. Company card, false descriptions, repeated, deliberate misuse of funds to conduct an affair with my client's wife. That's embezzlement and a catastrophic breach of fiduciary duty. I leaned forward. So here are your options, Brandon. 1. You take back your original $200,000, sign a non-compete, and walk away from private security for 10 years. Quietly, he stared at the table. And 2, I said. We file suit. Civil, maybe criminal. Your name goes on every public record tied to this. Every client hears exactly what you did with their retainers. You lose the money, the reputation, and maybe your license. The room went silent except for the clock. Tick, 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 Adam whispered. Take the deal. Brandon's hand shook as he signed each page. Buyout, non-compete, resignation. When it was done, Daniel gathered the papers. I stood. You don't work for my company, I said. You don't call my clients. You don't say my name. He didn't argue, just walked out, lighter by a business and a future. I felt nothing but relief. I hadn't destroyed him. I just made sure the damage he chose finally counted. The conference room was smaller than the one I'd ended Brandon in, but it felt the same. Long table, pitcher of water, cheap art on the walls pretending this wasn't where lives got carved up. Jessica sat across from me, eyes puffy, hair done like she was trying to remind everyone she used to be the pretty wife in the Christmas cards. Next to her was her lawyer, Melissa Grant. Mid-30s, sharp blazer, the kind smile they teach you in law school for family court. On my side, Daniel. Same suit, same legal pad, same complete lack of emotional investment. At the head of the table sat the mediator, Susan Price. Gray hair, glasses, neutral expression. She'd seen 1,000 versions of this. Susan cleared her throat. We're here to see if we can reach a settlement without going to trial. Ms. Grant, why don't you start? Melissa leaned forward, palms open. Jessica is deeply remorseful, she began. She made a mistake. Daniel's pen tapped once against the pad. A serious one, Melissa added quickly. But it happened in the context of 8 months of loneliness, isolation, and emotional abandonment while Mr. Walker was overseas. She was a military wife under extreme stress with minimal support. I watched Jessica wipe her eyes on cue. Melissa continued, Jessica devoted years to this marriage, supported Ryan's career, moved for his work, and sacrificed her own opportunities. She simply wants a fair share of the life they built together and transitional support while she rebuilds. Susan looked at Daniel. Response. He slid a thin stack of papers forward. Timeline of the affair, he said. Not a mistake. 8 months of continuous contact. Hotel receipts, flights, dinners. All paid for by a company Mr. Walker built and funded. He spread out the pages. Expense reports, screenshots, dates. Jessica's lonely military wife phase just happens to line up exactly with luxury trips and high-end meals bought with stolen funds, Daniel said. During these same 8 months, she did not work, did not contribute financially, and enjoyed a level of lifestyle she did not earn. Melissa bristled. She contributed emotionally by sleeping with his business partner in his home, in his bed, Daniel said, voice still calm. Repeatedly. Silence. Jessica stared at the table. Susan adjusted her glasses, eyes on the documents. Does your client dispute the accuracy of these expenses or the social media posts? Melissa hesitated. We don't dispute the photos, she said. We dispute the characterization. This doesn't erase the years before. Susan nodded slowly. Be that as it may, ongoing spousal support is unlikely considering the length of the marriage, lack of children, and this pattern of conduct, especially tied to misuse of business funds. Translation, her leverage was almost zero. Daniel slid our proposal across the table. Here's what my client is offering. She keeps her car. She keeps her personal belongings. She receives a one-time lump sum payment of $30,000. No alimony. No future claims on his business or future earnings. Melissa frowned. That's minimal. Generous, Daniel corrected. Given the circumstances, he's not obligated to offer that much. But he'd like this closed cleanly. Jessica finally looked up at me, voice shaking. You're really leaving me with nothing? I met her eyes. No hate, no love left. Just facts. I'm leaving you with a car, 30 grand, and your freedom, I said. That's more than you left me with when you decided our vows were optional. She flinched like I'd hit her. I didn't enjoy it. I just didn't protect her from it. Susan folded her hands. Jessica, given what I've seen, this is probably the best you're going to get. If we go to court, there's a strong chance you walk away with less. Minutes passed in quiet argument between her and Melissa. Finally, Jessica grabbed the pen. She signed. Initialed. Dated. Melissa slid the papers back. Tight-lipped. Outside the building, Jessica caught up to me on the sidewalk. So that's it? She asked. All we've been through, and you just cut me out? I looked at her one last time. No, I said. You did that. I'm just finishing the paperwork. Then I turned and walked away. No dramatic last look, no second thoughts. She'd made her choices. I'd made sure the consequences landed where they belonged. The first morning after everything was official, I woke up alone in that same house and noticed something I hadn't felt in months. Quiet that wasn't hostile. No suitcases, no slammed doors, no phones buzzing with lawyer numbers. Just light through the blinds and my own breathing. I made coffee, sat at the dining table where I'd planned the destruction, and opened my laptop to start planning the rebuild. Walker Cole was dead on paper. What was left was Walker Security Solutions, my name, my work, my responsibility. At the office, I called a staff meeting. Small team, operators, analysts, admin. People who'd trusted us with their mortgages and kids' braces. 2 things, I said. 1, Brandon's out. For good. 2, if you're still here after today, you're with me, not some partnership on letterhead. I will make this company worth your time and loyalty. You'll never wonder where my priorities are. Nobody left. That told me everything I needed to know. I promoted Nick Harris to VP of Operations on the spot. He'd moved without hesitation when I called from that kitchen. That's a man you elevate. Then there was Lauren, his sister, our part-time HR and compliance consultant. She stepped in full-time when things got rough, quietly putting structure where chaos used to live. She was organized, calm, and had a way of looking at problems like they were just puzzles. Not proof the world was out to get you. While I chased contracts and cleaned up Brandon's mess, she built policies, culture, and a workplace that didn't feel like a war zone. We grew fast once the dead weight was gone. Government contracts came in off old military contacts who respected what I'd done overseas and how I'd handled things here. Headcount doubled, then tripled. Revenue went from survival numbers to people are asking for interviews numbers. One night, after a 12-hour day restructuring our service lines, Lauren and I ended up at a small Italian place down the street. No candles, no big speech. Just 2 people who'd been in the trenches of my life for months. She raised her glass. You didn't let what they did define you, she said. You answered it. That's different. I didn't have a smooth reply. I just knew I believed her more than I believed any compliment I'd heard in years. From there, it didn't just happen. We made choices, slow, deliberate. Coffee after late nights. Dinners that weren't about work. a hand on my arm when another legal notice came in and I felt that old tension rise. One day I realized I wasn't thinking about Jessica and Brandon every time I walked into my own bedroom. I was thinking about payroll, contracts, and where I wanted to take this company in 5 years, and whether Lauren would still be at my side when I got there. That's when I knew I'd built something worth defending again. The envelope was thick, heavy, and smug. San Francisco firm letterhead, too polished for its own good. I slid it open with a letter opener Lauren had bought for me as a joke. Gunmetal gray, shaped like a miniature bayonet. Fitting. Complaint stared up at me in bold. Plaintiff, Brandon Cole. Defendant, me. The main points were simple and insulting. He claimed the buyout was signed under duress, that the non-compete was overly restrictive, that I'd exploited his emotional state and leveraged personal information to force an unfair deal. Translation. He wanted another shot at my company now that it was worth more than his pride. For a minute, the room tunneled. Not panic, just that exhausted, you've got to be kidding me kind of angry. I'd fought the war at home, cleaned up the wreckage, rebuilt, and started to breathe. And here he was trying to drag me back into the blast radius. I forwarded the scan to Daniel and called him. Tell me this is a joke, I said. I wish I could, he replied. But the good news is it's weak. The bad news is even weak cases cost time and money. How bad? Months, he said. Maybe more. Discovery, depositions, motions. You'll win. But he's betting you'll settle just to get your life back. I looked through my office window at my people. Phones ringing, operators planning details, Lauren walking someone through onboarding with that calm, steady voice. I'm not paying him to go away, I said. I already paid him once. I'm not buying back my own victory. Daniel's voice was flat. Then we fight. The next months blurred into a new kind of war. No sand, no bullets. Just fluorescent lights, conference rooms, and questions that tried to turn my own strength into a weapon against me. In deposition, Brandon's attorney tried to paint me as a bully. You showed up in a position of power, he said. You presented evidence of alleged wrongdoing in an intimidating manner. Would you say your military background makes you more forceful than the average person? I held his gaze. My background makes me disciplined, I said. I presented facts. He made choices. That's the whole story. At night, I'd sit at my desk at home staring at spreadsheets that refused to come into focus. Every hour I spent revisiting the past for lawyers was an hour I wasn't spending on the future of my company. One evening, Lauren walked into my office and found me just sitting there, staring at the wall, the complaint open on my screen again like it had something new to say. She leaned on the doorframe. How bad? Like being sued by a mosquito, I said. Individually harmless, collectively infuriating. She stepped in, put a hand on my shoulder. You've beaten him every time he's challenged you, she said. He lost the business. He lost the girl he thought he wanted. Now he's trying to win in paperwork because it's the only battlefield where he thinks he's got a chance. He doesn't. I let out a slow breath. Tired of fighting. I know, she said. But you're not fighting to win something new this time. You're fighting to keep what you already built. That's different. That matters. So I kept showing up. Sat through strategy meetings with Daniel. Reviewed emails, timelines, and every step of that original buyout. Signed affidavits. Answered the same questions phrased 10 different ways. Every time the thought creeped in. Just settle. Write a check. Make it disappear. I pictured Brandon walking away with money he hadn't earned. Rewriting the story as if he'd been the victim of my pressure. No, he'd chosen betrayal. I'd chosen consequences. This lawsuit was just his last refusal to accept that those consequences were real. So I did what I've always done when someone keeps coming after me. I dug in, held the line, and waited for my turn to fire back in front of the only person whose opinion still mattered. The judge. Daniel told me to wear the dress uniform. Not for sympathy, judges hate that, but as a reminder. Let the room see who you are, he said. Not who he says you are. So I walked into that courtroom in marine blues. Not for theater. For truth. 3 tours, scars you can't see, and a life built the hard way. Brandon was already at the council table in an off-the-rack suit, eyes sunken, skin gray from months of stress and whatever story he'd been telling himself. Adam sat beside him, shuffling papers like he could rearrange reality. Judge Robert Ellis took the bench. Late 50s, tired eyes, the look of a man who'd heard every lie twice. Adam opened with his pitch about duress and unequal bargaining power, painting Brandon as emotionally overwhelmed, ambushed by evidence, and pressured into signing away a valuable stake. Ellis listened, face unreadable. Then he said, "Show me." That was Daniel's cue. He walked the judge through everything. The expense reports, the hotel receipts, the business dinners that lined up perfectly with Jessica's travel photos. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't moralize. He just laid out numbers, dates, and policies Brandon had signed himself when we formed the company. Then came the emails. Recovered backups Brandon had been dumb enough to send from his work account. The ones where he bragged to a buddy about using Ryan's deployments to edge him out, how he'd end up with the company and the girl, how I was too busy playing soldier to notice. You could have heard a pin drop while Ellis read them. When he looked up, the temperature in the room had changed. "Mr. Cole," the judge said slowly, "you are asking this court to believe you were pressured into an unfair agreement by the man whose business and marriage you were actively trying to undermine for months?" Brandon swallowed. "Your Honor, I was under emotional." Ellis cut him off with a raised hand. "What you were under was the illusion there wouldn't be consequences." He turned to the record. "Here's my ruling," he said. "The settlement agreement is valid and enforceable. There was no unlawful duress, only the presentation of your own misconduct. The non-compete stands. This lawsuit is frivolous in light of your documented behavior." He paused, let it hang. "Case dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Cole is barred from bringing further actions related to this settlement or this company. And counsel would be wise to advise him that a stunt like this again may result in sanctions." Gavel. Done. Outside, under a gray Sacramento sky, Daniel slid his hands into his pockets. "It's over," he said. "He can't touch you again. Not your company, not your time. He's done." For the first time in a long time, my shoulders actually dropped. The war at home was over. 6 months later, the only time I heard Brandon's name was when someone else brought it up. The company's revenue had quadrupled. We'd landed another federal contract. Some business magazine ran a feature on veteran-led security firms to watch, and my face ended up on a page I hadn't asked for. By then, Lauren was wearing my ring. Nothing flashy. Simple band, clear stone, chosen in a quiet jewelry store on a Tuesday afternoon. She said yes like it was the most obvious thing in the world. At Sunday dinner, my parents watched her more than they watched me. My father waited until she stepped outside to take a call, then nodded once. "She stands straight," he said. "Doesn't flinch from the hard parts. You did good, son." Validation from a Marine father comes in short sentences. That was a full speech. A week later, I ran into an old acquaintance at a coffee shop. He leaned in, voice low. "Man, I heard what you did to Brandon," he said. "You destroyed him." I shook my head. "No," I said. "He destroyed himself. I just made sure the consequences stuck." That night, I sat on my back porch as the sun dropped behind the Sacramento skyline. House quiet. Lauren in the kitchen humming while she made dinner. No tension in the walls. No secrets. This is what winning looked like. A business with my name on it that nobody could steal. A partner who chose to stand beside me, not climb on my back. A past that didn't get erased, but sure as hell didn't get to define me. I turned back to the mental camera the same way I started this story. Sometimes the good guy actually wins. Not clean, not painless, but he wins. Sometimes justice doesn't come from a battlefield. It comes from a stack of papers and a judge who calls things what they are. If this found you when you needed it, if you're sitting in your own quiet war zone right now, remember this. You don't control who betrays you. You control what happens after.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.